We've lived it, we've loved it, we've questioned it, especially during tornadoes and hailstorms. Should you full-time RV? We're going to answer that question coming up next on Millers in Motion. Welcome back to Millers in Motion. And by the way, welcome to the new studio for the RV Shenanigans podcast, coming back soon. Lauren and I actually spent a little over 3 years living full-time in our RV, traveling this amazing country, meeting amazing people. I wonder how many more times I can say amazing. And we truly loved every second of it. But there was something missing for us that involved a little bit more structure and security. So if you follow us for any sort of time now, you know that we recently purchased a home base. And honestly, we feel the most qualified of almost anybody out there in the content creation space to talk about the differences in full-time and part-time RV life and whether or not you should make that jump. So we're going to try and help you answer that question if it's something you're considering doing. Before we dive too far into this topic, we want to say a huge thank you to RVmattress.com for not only supplying our mattresses, but being a longtime supporter of the channel. We've been super spoiled in our RVs with getting some of the best night's sleep we've ever gotten. And now that we're only part-time RVers and we purchased a home, naturally for us, we wanted to make sure that we kept sleeping as well as we have in our RVs. So even though we moved into a house, we wanted to go back to where we got our mattresses from, RVmattress.com from Brooklyn Bedding.
And this time we splurged on the adjustable bases. Have you ever woken up on a rainy Saturday morning and just wanted to lounge in bed and watch TV? Now, this makes it a little bit more comfortable and you're not just laying flat to do that.
Plus for me, I don't have the best back in the world, and sometimes just propping 2, 3, 4, 12, whatever, pillows behind me doesn't exactly help support my back in any, so if I'm gonna sit up in bed, now I actually have to support the mattress. So this time around, we actually chose to do the split king mattress because, shocker, we're very different people and have very different needs. I like a very firm mattress, so I did that on my side.
And I like to sleep in a cloud, basically. Now, I did the medium, but we both did the cloud pillow top on this, which has cooling technology in it, because while we're very different, we both sleep very warm, and this stuff is cool to the touch. We had it in our last one and loved it.
Speaking of the last one, this is not our only RVmattress.com from Brooklyn Bedding. We obviously have the split king now in our house. Our guests that come to stay with us here, if they choose to not sleep in their RV and they want to sleep in the house, will also be sleeping on a firm king-size version of this mattress with the cloud pillow top. And last but not least, in our brand new RV, guess what?
But wait, there's more.
We also have an RVmattress.com from Brooklyn Bedding mattress in that RV. We weren't joking when we say we love these things.
We really do. So they have several different models with different kind of amenities, if you will, about it, and several sizes. Ask us, we have several of them. But they do, and some of those unique RV sizes too, so that's really important. But if you're still kind of hesitant, remember they do have that 120-night sleep trial and a limited lifetime warranty.
Also, all their mattresses are designed, assembled, and shipped from their factory in Arizona, where they have been making mattresses for over 25 years.
And don't forget, shipping is free to your front door.
In the US.
Important, I guess.
So if you're interested in getting a better night's sleep, whether it's in your house or your RV, check out RVmattress.com/Millers in Motion. You know what they get if they go that route as well?
30% off.
Regardless of what the website is giving you, which sometimes they do 30% off, like around President's Day, but like right now, I think it's 25. Take the extra 5%.
Do it.
Also, if you're watching this on a TV, you can scan that QR code that's right down there on the screen to make it nice and easy. Thank you so much to RVmattress.com from Brooklyn Bedding for sponsoring this video and being a longtime supporter of the channel. Now, back to whatever we were doing previously. So right out of the gates, I think we should talk about the most important thing that I feel like nobody really talks about, at least out loud, when trying to make this decision. One, never do anything, ever do anything that potentially puts you in a financial pickle. Don't hurt yourself financially to make an RV full-time life dream come true. Whether that's purchasing a rig or the one thing that I'll tell you, selling your home to purchase a rig. And I'm not telling you not to do that, But just understand what happens, because you're selling a home, which most of the time is an appreciating asset. There's some circumstances where it's not, but for the most part, it's an appreciating asset. For an RV, which is a vehicle, which is a depreciating asset. So just make sure you take steps financially to make sure that you're prepared and okay with those things. I've heard of a lot of people, instead of selling their house, renting it. That's a great way to still have that house be part of their net worth and not lose the house and still get the RV. Now you have to have the financial capital to be able to purchase that RV outright, down payment on loan, whatever version of it you want to get to. Now, the other side of that financial coin, if you may, is don't get in over your head with a rig. All rigs will break at some point. The good ones do it less and with minor problems versus major problems. Case in point, our alliances have only ever been small problems. But I've heard some horror stories of some trailers having bent frames. We personally have friends that have had to experience this and actually lost their rig over that, and in doing that, losing quite a bit of money. I've also heard of some people investing $500,000 or more on a big diesel pusher that just has engine problems constantly or other problems constantly. So just remember, you're buying a vehicle. Don't get in over your head financially. If you can afford to buy that Newell, for starters, do you need an adopted son that's in his 40s? Secondly, just make sure that you understand what potentially comes with that. That also goes with maintenance of those rigs. Those big diesel pushers require a lot more maintenance that costs more than, say, a small travel trailer that has very minimal maintenance and doesn't cost quite as much. All right, here's another financial one. Sorry, I keep coming back to it, but it's important. Let's talk about cost. Is it cheaper to live on the road full-time than it is to own a home full-time? So this is like campground fees versus maybe a mortgage. Investing in solar and lithium or campground fees versus like an electric bill. Again, campground fees, trying to find water, all of those things, a water bill. There's a lot of different things that are reasonably comparable. What we found, for the most part, for us, it was pretty, the monthly fees translated about the same. So how much we spent in a mortgage, we spent in campgrounds and other things. Now, I will say we had a great rate, an old rate. That might be different now, and that may be very different based on your home. So that's a hard comparison to make. Just know you should math these things out. Like if you're, and also if you're boondocking a lot, obviously that's not, you're not going to have that initial cost of staying in campgrounds, but maybe you build a huge lithium battery and solar system to offset that. Well, that kind of falls into that category now. Also, if you're living in a small, maybe a small modest house or a mega mansion, what you're offsetting your RV life expenses with compared to your home expenses is obviously another factor. So I would tell you to math it all out. Again, worst case scenario, talk to people. You can talk to us. We're very open and frank about what we've spent, what we've done, those types of things, and whether or not it worked for us. I can tell you for us, it was about a wash. But again, that may be different for you based on your scenario. All right, this one's a little interesting to talk about. Work-life balance. If you are a remote worker and maybe your spouse isn't, or you're rolling solo, making sure that you have internet. I'll tell you, internet on the road, for stable, good internet on the road, you're going to spend quite a bit of money. Way more than you're ever going to do in a house. At least in North Texas right now, you can get a pretty robust fiber internet connection for anywhere from $60 to $120. On the road, one thing that anybody that talks about connectivity and internet on the road is you want redundancies. We had it. You should have it if you need internet. So we ran things like Starlink. We had a MIMO router, which is multiple in, multiple out, which means we can actually bring campground Wi-Fi in, bond it together with maybe a cell signal with T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon or whoever you got, and then push that back out into a Wi-Fi that's specifically for our coach. Those things can start to add up. I mean, obviously, cell plans change a lot. At the moment, I know Starlink Roam is $165 a month. Again, that's at the time of recording, which is late June 2025, so that might change. It's gone up quite a bit. We initially started paying, I think, $140, and now it's $165. So now you can pause things. You can temporarily do stuff. Not all service plans are the same, but that's a real thing. So what you would spend for around $100, maybe a little less on the average, you're going to increase there. Now, being on the road, does that help you? Are you already on the road a lot because of work, and now being in the RV, you can just roll into campgrounds? Maybe it is, and maybe that works better for you. The other thing too is finding a workspace in your rig. That was a challenge for us. It was great in the Valor. It wasn't great in the rig before that because it was just one big space, and I was on calls all the time, and Lauren got a little annoyed at moments because the only spot she can go hang out and relax without me on the phone was in the bedroom, or I had to work from the bedroom. So that's kind of why I say you have to kind of judge those things as they may come. The next things I'm going to talk about is a little bit based on you. So mental health, burnout, and daily routines. I'm going to kind of lump all of those together because there's something about being on the road and waking up and having a beautiful vista just north of the Badlands on the ridge. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Waking up in Florida in the Keys on the beach, those types of things are amazing. The reality of it, though, is you're also going to wake up in campgrounds. You're going to wake up in positions you don't want to be woken up in. Like RVs are louder in rainstorms, so you might wake up at 3 a.m. when there's a rainstorm coming through. Pros and cons, again, just like everything else. But understanding those, and also the routine of maintenance inside of an RV isn't like a house. Like at a house, if you're a couple, let's say 2 people, we do laundry every 3rd or 4th day, and we go through quite a bit of it because we work outside and sweat and toss stuff in. We both work out. We are starting to work out. She has been. But going through a lot of those things and, knowing you have to do laundry almost every day or have to find a laundromat. We've always had on board. We don't in this current rig, but because we're part-time now, but we've always had laundry on board, and it's a much smaller space. And so you have to do laundry almost every single day, at least every 2 days. So understanding those things, having that repetition can burn you out. And then the whole travel day scenario, but you can get burnt out of the house just as easy, but just know that that is all kind of part of it. In addition to that, cooking in an RV is much different than cooking in a house. You're working with smaller spaces, smaller things. There's a lot of RVs you can do almost everything in your house. It's still going to be more difficult. So if you're a big baker, for instance, I'm sorry, your stand mixer is probably not making the cut because 1, it takes up a lot of space. 2, it's heavy. And weight is a thing in an RV. In a house, it doesn't matter. Put it in there. As long as you don't break the drawer, good for you. In an RV, that's an overall weight thing, and a stand mixer can weigh 20 pounds. And is that really 20 pounds you want to carry around versus like a handheld mixer? So again, all of these types of things and having to deal with them constantly, honestly, it caused us a little bit of burnout in doing that. And that's another one of many reasons why we decided to purchase a house and go part-time. All right, this is a fun one. Let's talk maintenance. I'm going to specifically only talk about the RV because different houses have different things, and I'm not going to get into all that because we have a septic system versus a city. I have to maintain that. The city maintains sewer lines, so on and so forth. So in an RV, it's a different set of problems. When you're living in it full time, you're using the water systems full time, you're using the sewage system full time, you have to treat, clean, maintain these things at a more rapid rate. Now, when you're part-time, you're not using those things as much. Now, you have to do certain things pre and post trip to make sure that they're okay. But leaving it stored presents a new set of problems. Bugs and rodents being a big one. Didn't know that was a thing. Every time I pull the RV up, spider webs everywhere. Inevitably, I find some spiders inside. Haven't had a rodent yet. Knock on wood. We're hopefully that. But that is something that you have to take into consideration. So for us, storing the RV, we have to exercise the system so often. Now, we're pretty avid RVers. Well, obviously, we have the channel. We create content around it. So we get the RV out quite a bit. It typically won't sit for longer than 6 weeks at the absolute most. So we're really exercising our systems a lot. But some people leave RVs longer periods of time. They might stay down for 6 months at a shot. Also, towables store differently than drivables, because drivables, you have to worry about chassis batteries. You have to worry about all kinds of different things. You have a whole engine compartment, whether it's a gas or a diesel, Super C, diesel pusher, van. They all have their things. They all have their maintenance. And so really take that into consideration. Again, when you're full-timing, exercising those systems more regularly is a little bit more of a common thing. And typically it's a little better. You just have to do the regular maintenance on all the other systems a little more frequently, like sanitization and those things. So ultimately, why did we switch? Why did we give up full-time RV life? Can't see it as much. Why did we give up full-time RV life for part-time and a home base? Well, at the end of the day, for us, we were being drawn back to Texas for work and family things quite a bit. And so it didn't make a lot of sense for us to continue living in the RV when we could make an investment into some property. That doesn't mean we're not going to RV a ton, because as evident, we're still able to make a video every single week. Sometimes it's these types of videos where we're trying to answer questions that a lot of people ask. Other times it's the travel stuff. Like previous to this, we spent some time in Wisconsin. When this comes out, we are actively traveling again. And so we typically take at least a weekend trip every 2 or 3 weeks on the average. Now, with that being said, we definitely miss the caravanning and being with friends more. We don't see them as much anymore, obviously. We talk to them quite a bit on the phone, but we have friends scattered across the U.S. Now, they always have somewhere to stay if they come to North Texas. Not getting to see them in different spots across the U.S. does play a little bit of a factor. It makes us a little bit sad. But at the end of the day, we can always pack up and head out and meet them somewhere if we really wanted to go do those types of things. So that, and then we miss everything just being with us. The dog stuff being there, everything being in one spot. When you get somewhere, you put the slides out, you're home, done. It did start to feel like it was a routine we had to do. We had to travel versus wanted to travel. And sometimes we go somewhere on a vacation and like Pigeon Forge, and it didn't necessarily feel 100% like a vacation. We did vacation-y things, but then you came back and it's like, oh, I remember I got to fix that and my office is set up, so I might as well get some work done now. Whereas when you're on vacation, you have a tendency to throw a little bit of that stuff off to the side, enjoy the time right there with family, friends, whoever, enjoy the space and move on. So for us, the decision to go from full-time to part-time made 100% sense because of the amount of time that we have to spend in Texas because our families, well, quite frankly, our parents are getting older, so that we can be around them, not only to assist, but enjoy time with them, because that's something that we did lose quite a bit of when we were out on the road. Now for the big answer to a question that I know we've been asked a bunch since we said we went part-time about 4 or 5 months ago. Would we ever go back to full-time RV life? Yeah, probably. And I say that I'm not going to speak for a different season of life because I don't know at the end of the day. But nothing about full-time RV life scared me away from it. Now, would I do it a little differently? Probably. You know, we really want to test the motorhome market at some point. We want to get into that. Now, in a different season of life, when we're not working as much, and I say that not the channel, because the channel is work, but it's fun too. We both have regular jobs. And so, you know, the channel does not support us. With that being said, right below the video, if you're on your computer, you can see some merch. You can go to the website and join our insiders, which we call the family. By all means, all of those things help support us and pushes, at least me, further from regular work into YouTube work, which I really enjoy, and hopefully you guys do too. So would we go full-time again? The short answer is more than likely, depending on the scenario at the time. Hopefully this answers some questions. If I didn't answer a question that you have, please feel free to leave a comment down below and we will get to it as soon as we possibly can. If you have a more lengthy question, feel free to email us at info@millersinmotion.com, or you can go to the website, millersinmotion.com. At the very bottom, you'll see a link that says contact us. You could do it that way as well, and we will be happy to respond and answer any questions that we possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. And again, Mom, you probably didn't watch this video. Shame. You should watch them all. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, Mom.